Why does sweating cool me down? And why does water seem to be involved in almost everything our bodies do?
To answer that, Maya, we have to look at something far smaller than a drop of sweat. We need to look at the unique architecture of water itself. One water molecule looks simple: two hydrogen atoms bonded to one oxygen atom, in this characteristic bent shape. But oxygen and hydrogen do not share those electrons equally. That unequal sharing gives oxygen a partial negative charge, and the hydrogen's partial positive charges. That makes water a polar molecule.
If water were nonpolar, would neighboring water molecules still attract one another in the same way? Look carefully at those charges. What do you predict will happen next?
The positive side of one molecule is attracted to the negative side of another.
Exactly. The covalent bonds hold each water molecule together. The hydrogen bonds form between neighboring water molecules. But enormous numbers of them are constantly forming, breaking, and forming again.
So together, they can strongly influence how water behaves?
Exactly. Because water molecules attract one another, water shows cohesion. Water can also interact with other polar or charged surfaces. This is adhesion. At the surface, cohesive interactions among water molecules create surface tension. What would happen if H-bonds were gone?
The attraction would decrease, so surface tension should decrease too. I understand. But how does that explain why sweat cools me down?
That same hydrogen bonding changes the way water responds to heat. When water absorbs thermal energy, its molecules move faster. But because water molecules form hydrogen bonds, considerable energy can be absorbed before the temperature rises dramatically. Water has a high specific heat. It can absorb or release a relatively large amount of thermal energy, while undergoing a comparatively small change in temperature.
That thermal stability matters to life. Water helps organisms and aquatic environments resist rapid temperature fluctuations.
But cooling by sweating depends on another thermal property of water. For liquid water to become water vapor, molecules must gain enough energy to escape the liquid phase. The molecules most likely to escape are among the higher energy molecules. When they leave, they carry thermal energy away. Now explain it yourself.
Why does sweating cool your body? Water molecules form hydrogen bonds. Evaporation requires energy to overcome intermolecular attractions.
Exactly. These properties are related to water's intermolecular interactions, but they are not the same thing. Which property most directly explains evaporative cooling?
Water's high heat of vaporization.
Good.
So water can help control temperature. But cells also contain thousands of different dissolved substances. What is it about water that allows so many?
Remember, a water molecule has regions of partial positive and partial negative charge. That polarity allows water to interact with charged particles. Water molecules can surround ions and help separate them from one another. Scientists call this a hydration shell.
So water isn't just empty space around these particles.
Exactly. Water is interacting with them. Water also interacts with many polar molecules. Charged and polar substances that interact favorably with water are often described as hydrophilic. Cells do not perform chemistry in empty space. Much of cellular chemistry occurs in an aqueous environment.
If water is such a good solvent, does it dissolve everything?
No. Nonpolar substances interact differently with water and are often described as hydrophobic. This difference between hydrophilic and hydrophobic behavior becomes enormously important in biology. Water doesn't simply fill biological space. Its chemical property. Suppose water suddenly became nonpolar.
Predict what would happen to its ability to dissolve many ions. It would interact much less effectively with charged particles.
Exactly. This difference between hydrophilic and hydrophobic behavior becomes enormously important in biology. Water doesn't simply fill biological space, its chemical property. Cells do not perform chemistry in empty space. Much of cellular chemistry occurs in an aqueous environment. Once again, molecular structure produces biological consequences.
Water behaves strangely when it freezes too. Why does ice float instead of sinking?
The answer is hidden in the way hydrogen bonds organize water molecules. As water freezes, its molecules become organized into a more stable hydrogen-bonded structure. The surface ice also reduces heat exchange between the water below and the colder environment above, allowing aquatic ecosystems to survive cold seasons. In liquid water, molecules are constantly moving, and hydrogen bonds are continually rearranging. The arrangement formed in ice holds water molecules farther apart, on average, than they are in liquid water. Because the solid structure is more open, ice is less dense than liquid water.
So that's why ice floats?
Exactly.
We've explained a lot, but how could we actually test these ideas with evidence?
That's the next step in biology. Move from an explanation to a testable prediction.
A property that begins at the molecular scale can change conditions for an entire ecosystem. Because ice is less dense than liquid water, it remains at the surface.
So what measurable prediction follows from that idea?
If both liquids receive the same amount of energy, the water should show a smaller temperature increase.
Now we have a testable prediction.
Don't look for the answer you expect. Look at what the data actually show. What is the independent variable?
The type of liquid. And the dependent variable? The temperature change after the same energy input. The comparison liquid's temperature increased more rapidly. Water showed a smaller.
Now explain the biological chemistry behind the pattern.
Could we use this experiment?
No, the sample masses are different. It would create a confounding difference.
What must stay the same?
Sample mass, starting temperature, container, and energy input.
Exactly.
Water's intermolecular hydrogen bonding contributes to its high specific heat. Water changes temperature less under these conditions.
Now you're using evidence to support a mechanism.
Which part tells us what happened? The evidence.
Which part connects that evidence to the biological mechanism?
The reasoning.
Start at the beginning. What about this molecule makes everything else possible?
It has a bent shape, and oxygen attracts the shared electrons more strongly than hydrogen does.
And what does that produce?
A polar molecule.
Good. Don't memorize the word. Explain where the polarity comes from.
Because water is polar, neighboring molecules can form hydrogen bonds. Now we're ready to explain the properties.
Why does water show cohesion?
Because hydrogen bonds create intermolecular attraction among water molecules.
How is adhesion different from cohesion?
Cohesion is attraction among water molecules. Adhesion involves interactions between water and other suitable surfaces.
What biological consequence follows from this property? Water can absorb or release substantial thermal energy, helping reduce rapid temperature fluctuations.
And why does sweating cool you? Evaporating water carries thermal energy away from my skin. Why is water an effective solvent? Because its partial charges allow water molecules to interact with ions and polar regions.
Why does ice float?
Hydrogen bonding organizes molecules into a more open structure in ice, making it less dense.
These aren't 7 unrelated facts about water. They are consequences of molecular structure and intermolecular interactions.
This is one of the most important habits in biology. When structure changes, properties can change, and when properties change, biological function can change.
Why does ice float?
Hydrogen bonding organizes molecules into a more open structure in ice, making it less dense.
Imagine a molecule without water's polarity.
Predict 3 biological properties that would change. It would not form the same hydrogen bond network. Its thermal. So the real answer isn't just that life needs water, it is that the structure of watering systems depend on.
Now give me the complete answer.
Why does sweating cool me down?
How would you answer your original question?
Well,
Water has a bent molecular structure and unequal electron sharing. Neighboring water molecules can form hydrogen bonds. Those intermolecular interactions contribute to properties such as cohesion, surface tension, high specific heat, and why ice is less dense than liquid water. Water's polarity also allows it to interact with many ions and polar molecules. Its molecular properties help create the conditions in which many biological processes occur.
And your first question? Why does sweating cool you?
Evaporation requires energy. Higher energy molecules escape, carrying thermal energy away.
Now apply what you've learned to a new system. If water evaporates more rapidly from one leaf, what would you predict about its surface temperature?
If more water evaporates, its surface temperature could become lower under those controlled conditions. Higher energy water molecules leave and carry thermal energy away.
What evidence would you collect?
I would measure water loss and leaf surface temperature over time. I would also control variables such as light intensity.
Does this pattern support your prediction?
yes. Greater water loss is associated with a lower surface temperature in this experiment, but we still have to consider experimental controls.
That's transfer. You use the same molecular principle.
Knowing a fact is only the beginning. In AP Biology, you must use biological principles to explain, predict, and evaluate evidence.
Water explains a lot. But water alone can't build a cell.
Exactly. We began with one molecule and followed its properties across multiple levels of biological organization.
That biological function can begin with molecular structure. Water's structure makes it polar. Its polarity allows important intermolecular interactions that living systems depend on.
Water creates the environment for life. But life also has to build cells, proteins, membranes, and genetic material.
Exactly. Carry that reasoning into every biological system you study. And when you make a claim, ask what evidence supports it.
So water is essential, but life needs more than water.
Water creates the environment for life. But life also has to build cells, proteins, membranes, and genetic material.
Exactly.
If water is essential for life, what other elements do living organisms need, and why?